Across every field, young Nigerians are breaking barriers, creating global music, building startups, leading movements, and turning frustration into innovation and ideas into impact. From technology to entertainment, agriculture to activism, this generation has become the heartbeat of Nigeria's progress. The United Nations Population Fund notes that over 70% of Nigerians are under 30. This makes Nigeria one of the youngest nations in the world. Nigeria's youth are not just vocal, they are enterprising. The country is now one of Africa's leading destinations for venture and Series A funding, with young founders driving some of the continent's most innovative startups in fintech, education, and health. These stories remind us that when given the right environment, young Nigerians dream and they achieve those dreams. Welcome to another episode of the Leading Woman Show Season 4, themed The Nigeria We Want, brought to you by our partners, the National Endowment for Democracy and Luminate. I'm your host, Abosede Jojogan. In this episode, the role of the Nigerian youth, a generation rising. We will explore the power, responsibility, and promise of young Nigerians driving change through activism, innovation, art, and agriculture. What does it mean to be part of this generation? How can young people help build a nation that supports and enables progress while holding leaders accountable and leading with purpose? Joining me on the episode are guests who are actively shaping the future of Nigeria across various sectors. Please welcome Scott Iguma, a youth advocate and social entrepreneur working at the intersection of governance, civic engagement, and technology. Scott's work focuses on empowering young people to understand their power as citizens and to lead change in their communities through innovation and accountability. We also have Honorable Dr. Azizat Yishau, the Senior Special Assistant on Youth Policy, Development, and Analysis to the Honorable Minister of Youth Development. As a medical doctor and youth advocate, her work is defined by a passion for policy, inclusion, and nation building. As the first female speaker of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, she led initiatives that strengthened youth participation in governance. Our next guest is Deolu Adefarasin, an actor, filmmaker, and social impact advocate, using storytelling to challenge stereotypes, spark dialogue, and inspire purpose amongst young Africans. His creative projects explore identity, leadership, and moral responsibility in today's world. Finally, we have Honorable Obiajulu Ugu. She is a member of the Enugu State House of Assembly, representing Enugu South Rural Constituency, and currently serves as the Deputy Chief Whip. A passionate advocate for women's empowerment, youth development, and rural transformation. She is widely recognized for her people-centered approach to leadership. Beyond politics, she's an entrepreneur and embodies the shift towards a more responsive and accountable public service. I am sure that you cannot wait to dive into this conversation, so let's dive in. All right, welcome back to today's episode where we're discussing the role of the Nigerian youth, a generation rising. And I'm really excited to have our guests in the studio. We have Obiajulu, Deolu, Azizat, and Scott. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Look, I think we have a really tough assignment with this discussion, and I'll tell you why. If there is anything we hear, I think we hear it everywhere, every day, is the youth are the assets of Nigeria. They are the greatest gift. We have the youngest population. It is our greatest asset. And I wonder if young people feel like Nigeria. Our theme this season is the Nigeria we want. And so that's where I want to start. Scott, I want to start with you. Do young Nigerians currently have the Nigeria that they want?
It's not 100% yes, it's not 100% no.
Let's hear it.
We have a vibrant youth, and some of them might complain that they don't have the Nigeria that they want. But the question is, who is to give you the Nigeria that you want? It's you. It's you to stand up, to put your boot on the ground, and deliver the country that you have in your imagination, and bring it to the screen of space, and bring it into the future. And then you have the Nigeria that you want. Because at the moment, you don't have the Nigeria that you want. There's a lot of challenges that we have in the country. We are facing a lot of crises. We are facing underdevelopment, poverty, etc. It goes on and it goes on, but who's going to change it? So it should move from waiting for the Nigeria you want to creating the Nigeria that you want.
Absolutely.
So that's what
agreed. Aziza, what would you say?
Yes, I mean, Abosede, thank you so much for having it. And this is a question that has two sides of the coin.
Yes.
And I think Scott already did do a good introduction to that perspective. And Nigerian youth wants more, and that is because more is obtainable. When we compare ourselves to what is obtainable on the global platform, you realize that what we are, behind, and so we want more. We know what is obtainable. We know what we can achieve. And just like Scott had said, and I think a lot of young people, especially those who are very active and conscious, we realize that we also have a responsibility to create that Nigeria that we want and to put ourselves in the right places to do that.
Absolutely. Deolu, is it different from where you sit?
In my opinion, I think the answer is no. Nigerians, the youth don't have the Nigeria we want, if we're to give a short answer. But I think beyond that, the first part of it is, do Nigerian youths want to be called youths in the first place? Right?
Interesting.
I was looking it up before we came here. So the UN consider youth 15 to 24. Yeah. But in Africa, it's considered 15 to 35.
That's correct.
And in Nigeria, it's considered
18 and above.
Maybe 15 plus, 50 plus were still a youth. So in the metrics of even when you're dynamic, you're influencing things, you're creating things, you're having impact, you're doing things of virtue, it's hard to consistently be called or considered a youth, because that's usually how they minimize what's your influence, your power, and the things that you're doing. So I think the first thing is that youth probably don't want to be called youth, and they want to be acknowledged for who they are.
Right.
And their capacities.
That's such an interesting perspective, and we'll come back to that to break it down, because we do have a very young population, and we're going to have to call them something. But Obiajulu, what would you say?
Okay, let me quickly build on what Deolu already said. No, we don't have the Nigeria that we want. And I would say that the possibilities of having that Nigeria we want is there. But just like he said, we don't want to be called youths and, caged in that enclave of tagging us something and then keeping us there to always stay and agitate without bringing forth results. They want us to remain youths who will go for protests, but who will not get involved in the policies. So we are always zoned to youths, to keep us there permanently. But if we if the youths are allowed to be to be who they are, and not the youths who should be used to execute certain things,
Right.
then we may just be gearing to the Nigeria that we truly want.
I think that's a really interesting perspective. Azizat, I want to come to you. And I mean, please feel free to share your own personal journey. What is the role that young people can play in nation building?
Thank you very much. Again, it's a large and very important role, especially based on the fact that we are the largest demography of citizens in Nigeria.
Yes.
Because when you want to talk about, if I want to like double up on the question again, if you ask what is the role of citizens in nation building, and we can be very critical because the large population that we have in Nigeria are young people. So that lens is focused, you know, on that young, on the very, very youth population. So we have a huge responsibility. And from my own perspective, like I said, there's always two sides of the coin, because it takes providing an enabling environment for young people to blossom to their full potential, to be able to carry on what it is that is the vision or the mandate or the dream for Nigeria itself. And that is the problem that we have in Nigeria, because we have young people, and just like my other colleagues have co-guests have mentioned, is that, you know, there's this huge perspective in the African Nigerian culture, what we define young people to be, to limit their expectations or their capacity. And like I said, that because the world is global, young people now know what they can achieve, what they can do, and what to expect. So you see young Nigerians evolving faster than the Nigerian ecosystem or the system is able to provide for us. So it's a problem, because then you cannot be certain of the outcome. If a certain generation fails to self-learn, then the burden is passed on to the next generation.
Absolutely.
And then there's nothing to learn. So it's a huge responsibility.
Interesting. Yes. Well, we've been having a conversation about the role of the Nigerian youth, a generation rising. We'll continue the conversation after the break. Welcome back. We're still discussing the role of the Nigerian youth, a generation rising. So now I want us to talk about, and Obiajulu started us really nicely around lessons learned. And I want us to talk about EndSARS specifically. I don't think that it would be, the Nigerian youth will not be happy with us. And I think that it was a moment in time where a lot of people gave up. And I think we've already alluded to that. But what are some of the lessons we could have learned? And then, Scott, maybe you can share from your experience, because you shared earlier that we need to do some work on ourselves. What can we learn from EndSARS? And how do we take that as momentum and not actually as defeat?
Okay. In my own personal opinion, I think what I learned from the EndSARS is we now have to use another system. We have to use knowledge. Applying knowledge into the system. That's how we're going to live and save the country. Because if we want to do protests, we want to keep protesting and keep protesting, what are you protesting for? Most of us don't even know what we are protesting for. We just want a good country. Well, how do we get the good country? It's going to come with systems. It's not just going to come with protesting. It's going to come with systems. So our protest, our energy should be channeled to systems. How we can build systems, and this is the best and the fastest way that we can do it. For example, I took the real estate system. Someone else can take the medical system. Someone else can take the educational system. And if we have 1 million Nigerian youths taking various systems, bro, in 5 years we could do so much. But if we all come together and protest and do all those things, we might end up, yes, making our voice heard, but those leaders per se, they know how to work against protest.
And unfortunately, there might be casualties, most importantly.
There might be casualties. But the thing that I've been doing, has there been any casualty? Has anyone been shot? No, but yet we've achieved results. So sometimes, I just have to say this, in my own opinion, our energy towards the protest is from anger, but it's also from non-direction anger. We have to channel our anger properly. We have to channel our anger towards systems. Because whether you like it or not, most Nigerians, we know the president, the governor. We don't know other people who are responsible for some particular systems. So we blame the president for everything, we blame the governor for everything because they are all we know.
One thing I just want to say is that protest is part of democracy. And the more we are able to, for us as young people, able to understand how to use it based on our environment and culture, right? It's Nigeria, African countries are not as developed and understanding of democracy and that protest right as advanced countries. And I'll say some certain facts. For example, I'll say what I learned from EndSARS is the power of negotiation and then what protest is used for. Protest is a quick in and out for a singularity, for a singular purpose. And I think that if we had maintained what the purpose was for EndSARS. Before EndSARS, the police had several reforms, 4 or 5. I think in that year or a year before, the then president, Malabesiso, signed certain reforms and all that. And then the activities of this particular agency was terrifying. And we cannot take that away from it. It was actually very terrifying. So there was a need. If normal systemic processes that were supposed to reform that was not working. So that is what protest does. It goes in and goes out. And so one of the things that I pick up as you know, as a lesson was that we needed as young people then, because then we were the focus. I think Scott has mentioned again, of course, we needed to know exactly what we wanted. So protest is like one booster arrow to hit the target and stay put.
Yeah.
And then we did not have a negotiating strategy. We were going in 5 things, then later it becomes 10 things, then said topple the government. That was not the purpose. And then we did not know who was who. Even though we organized on a large scale, it had the message went across Africa and some other nations as well, where young people are saying no is enough. And for me, that pushed me into from activism to advocacy. And that was what Scott was saying. So what we need to do as young people is to learn, because of course we are passionate, is systemic protest. Right?
Systemic
so you
process.
need to be able to, at one point in time, in system established, to be able to protest. And I use the word system as well, because that is where we can get some of the results that we are looking for.
Absolutely. I think you make a really important point that protest is part of democracy. So we shouldn't shy away from it, but as you and Scott have so nicely said, we should be systemic and we should have knowledge. I think this conversation is really important because we want to almost build a toolbook for how we turn this youth energy into nation building. And that's the conversation we're having. Deolu, I'd like to bring you in on, EndSARS and lessons. I don't know where you were, whether you were looking from the outside in, whether you were close, but what do you think we can take away from that experience?
I mean, so for me, there were a lot of lessons to learn. I showed up but I realized that one of the first things is where there isn't a clear vision, people will go off in 100 different directions. And so it was great. Many people came together. But if you were looking in detail, we weren't all united. We were angry at one person, but we weren't all angry for the same reasons. And when that happens, and there isn't a clear, this is what we want, this is what we desire, then you're not able to actually, focus that energy to ensure that you get results. Because what results do you want? And we didn't have a clear direction of this is exactly what we desire. Even today, do we have a clear picture of this is the Nigeria we want? Have we said this is what we want it to look like in this space and in this space? We need to build that picture.
Right.
And so that was one of the first things I learned. Another thing that I realized with EndSARS was everything requires structure.
That's right.
Because we decided as youth that we wanted to oppose certain structures, we didn't place structure. There was no leader.
They said there was a leaderless movement.
And when you do that, it sounds good in an idealistic term, but when conversations need to happen, who will sit down at the table? And so we need to be able to create structure. Structure is required for everything. And one of the final things I learned is that if we're honest with ourselves, we are a soft generation. And so we have to lean into our softness. Because as the reality of it is that there might be hardened people in this generation because Nigeria is tough. But as a generation, we are soft.
So
and the generation before that know that because they have been through much tougher things than we have. They have endured military governance. They have endured different rights of Nigeria, different coups. These guys have led through hard situations. So they knew that it would take a small act of force to force us to retreat. Because we didn't have the hardened nature to say, even in the fierceness that you bring our way, we can stand and resist it.
Right.
So we have to understand who we are facing, what we are facing, and also that the truth is that, because one of the perspectives of EndSARS was that it was us versus them, and it's not. We were fighting and protesting for our rights and for things that we desire, but we are not against the leadership or against government, because we have to learn from them. You know, I think it's been said, there are things to learn from the generation before us.
Absolutely.
We cannot afford to, in our frustration, think there's nothing to learn.
Absolutely.
Because we'll end up becoming more foolish.
Wow. So, Obiajulu, let me come to you. What did you learn from the EndSARS experience? I mean, you already shared what we learned from Not Too Young to Run. What did you learn from the EndSARS experience? And I would like you to connect that to sort of civic participation or actually running for office, because that's a way to build a system and to cause change in a more systematic way, I guess.
Okay, so Scott, my sister, and Deolu, they already said almost everything about our learnings from the EndSARS protest. And you asked Deolu, where was he during the EndSARS protest? Let me answer where I was. I lived just behind SARS in Enugu. And the bullets that they will shoot up sporadically most times will fall into my compound. So we had to lay low most of the time. So I will tell you that one of the things I learned from the EndSARS protests is that, yes, the violence takes it by force, but not all the time. And we need to itemize what we want at a particular time. You know, we want to deal with youth participation, allowing the youth to be in the system. Let us follow through with that. Give it a timeline of advocacy, dialoguing, and everything. Lobbying too, because currently the fuse in the legislature is about yes, there are reforms. There are a lot of things we want to change in our constitution, but the main one that has been hitting everywhere is women.
The reserve seats for women's
more
bill.
Women.
Yes.
And so we did the reserve seat bill in 2022 without proper lobbying, without proper dialoguing, without proper advocacy. And what did we get? Thrown out, straight up. But today, we have the forerunners of the reserve seat bill as men. It is a man, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, who is piloting that. You can see the difference. Massage the egos of this our, you know what the Yorubas do? The way they come and, to get something from their elders. You may not even feel very comfortable with that elder, but you just know you have to.
That's what you need to do.
Yes, you have to do that to get what you're looking for. So we need to learn how to engage properly and rightfully, so that we're not doing something else and expecting
and getting a different result. Scott, I want to come to you ahead of the next election cycle, without saying when it is happening. What can we do differently to get a different result or a different outcome?
Okay. No matter the solution that we attempt to provide, it has always been said we can do this, we can do this. Even as regards what we just said a few seconds ago. If we don't change this very thing I'm going to say,
let's hear it.
Then we're going to go in circles and circles. Worship of mammon, love of money. That has been our greatest problem, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. So this election is going to come now. And we have lots of Nigerian youths who are going to be in the NYC. Some of them will be employed to join and participate in the electoral process. And guess what? Sometimes these youths, you don't have to put a gun on their heads to bribe them. Just tell them, I'll give you 150,000. In fact, they even come to that place with the expectation of going back home with money. So they are ready to do the undo because to get money. So this is the challenges that has cut across all our sectors, everywhere in Nigeria, the love of money. So if we want to win this election, we have to put that aside and put in purpose. What do we want? What do we want for our country? Our love for our country should supersede every other personal desires that we have. I tell people I'm a patriotic Nigerian. I love this country to the depths. That's the honest truth. Because of how I love my country. So we should move from seeing our country as just a means of getting what we want to see our country of how we can build it. So if we want to do something in this election, I don't even know. We don't even know if we are having an election in 2027.
We'll have election.
We don't have any of the candidates.
Uninterrupted democracy.
I know we're going to have one, but it's not fully, I don't know how to say it though, but do we have candidates yet?
They will emerge.
They will emerge.
Young candidates will emerge.
So I don't know what we are going to do about the election
Yes.
because I don't even see all the candidates yet. But nonetheless, whatever we are going to do, as a country, as young people, we must shift from loving so much money to loving our country.
Yeah.
We want to effect a change in our country.
Fabulous. As I said, a young person, many young people are going to watch this. They are hearing Scott. They're like, yeah, go Scott. Your own don't balance. I mean, what they say, cut soup for me, all those kind of things. But they're like, we are hungry. Things are tough. Scott say we should leave money. What would you say to those young people?
So one thing I tell young people is that election is very important, but it's just a part of the old democratic cycle, to which we've learned in Nigeria that the outcome might not directly be in our hands. So when we look at the other aspect, because you see young people, I'll tell you, during 2023 election, I was really discouraged from the number of women that got into the House of Assembly. It was very discouraging, and I will completely say it. At the Senate, at the National Assembly, I'm like, what? I myself had programs, do you understand, to even mobilize young women to vote for women. And when we did that, we realized, okay, there were other ways to also try to ensure that the system is able to provide, to produce young people and to produce women for elections. So to go back to your question, one thing that I want to say is that if you're a young person that you also have influence with your team and other young person that, okay, yes, this is what you want to do, you need to build your resilience, do you understand me, to say no to those things.
Yes.
And if you have people that did, it's not fight forever. My candidate, your candidate. There are other places that democracy ensures that what you will get good governance. Whether the person that wins an election is a free and fair election does not mean that he will deliver. And that is why there are other structures for accountability. And then lastly, again, I think that in terms of policy and policy implementation is also a place that young people can create an ecosystem that supports them, right? It takes two to tango, and I'll say it. If someone does not offer you money, you are likely not to collect or to ask for, right? So if we have systems to ensure that those processes those instances are reduced, then you realize that what young people might not be open to that temptation. But as a lasting word, right, you have the ability as young people to resist.
Absolutely.
Especially if you want the result.
Because they're going to present it for now. We're still there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Deolu, before we go on a break and take audience questions, I want to hear from you about our value systems and the role that religious institutions, whether it's the mosques, the churches, can play in actually shaping the mindset of these young people.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing I believe very strongly is as goes the church, goes the nation. I think that a lot of the things...
I don't think the church will be happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing, but the truth is that we have to hold ourselves to certain levels of integrity and display our values, not just speak them. The truth is that for a long time, and it's not just here, it's not just Nigeria, it's displayed even in the West prior to maybe getting to a place where governance is strong, is that religious systems are very, very important to ensuring that change happens.
Absolutely.
They're important because they plug the gap often, whether it's in supporting those who have needs. It is a huge responsibility. And I'm very strongly of the belief, I know a lot of things happen around it, but the only way that the nation is going to change is until we build the value systems that we need. We need to build the value systems, because what happens now is that young people are seeing the way, whether it's the levels of corruption, and you're going to tell me that when I get there, I shouldn't eat the same way these guys have chopped. What is going to tell me to be different? So their expectation is my turn. Until you can build a value system in people where we are more other-centered than we are self-centered, and you're willing to actually let go. And this is a hard question for everyone, and including myself. We're very honest with ourselves. How often do we do things to go around the system?
Yeah.
When you want to go and get your passport redone, how often do we take those small corners and we say things like, oh, that's how Nigeria works?
Yes.
It's the way Nigeria works because we accept it.
Yeah.
Until we are willing to suffer in the hard things, suffer in the small areas, be diligent. I always say the hard part about Nigeria is that you have to look both ways on a one-way road. Why? Because we haven't learned to have the integrity to say that I'm going to do what is right, even if someone will not stop me, even if I know that maybe I can pay this guy and I'm going to do what is right, even if it delays my own cause.
Regardless.
We have to be willing to suffer.
Fabulous. All right. So we'll take another break, and when we return, we'll take some questions from the audience. Welcome back. We're still talking the role of the Nigerian youth, a generation rising, and now we'll go to audience questions.
Hello. Thank you. I really enjoyed the show and find it inspiring and intriguing. So I have two questions. The first is, what practical advice do you have for youths that want to engage in governance but lack the money and connections? And then, based on what I heard, I also want to ask this second question. What practical opportunities does exist for youths that want to engage with government and older leaders?
Fabulous. Thank you so much. So as we take these two questions, I would invite us to share our closing thoughts. So what practical steps can young people take when they don't have money or connection but want to participate in governance? And then the second one, opportunities for collaboration with government, which I think Obiajulu spoke about earlier. Can I also add how, in wrapping up, can we talk about how the youth can leverage the things that they have around technology, innovation, and that energy to really transform our nation and build the Nigeria that we want? Scott, let me start with you.
So we answered the question of
yes,
how to get
and
involved
then just share your
connection
thoughts. Yeah.
So I don't think you should position your mind firstly on the connection and the money. Maybe you should position your mind on the purpose and the values that you have to offer. If you stand upright, if you stand with your values, if you stand with the right purpose, these connections and money will find you. That's the honest truth. So most of us we've been deceived that thinking money is what you need. But money is not what you need. What you need is purpose. And guess what? These leaders up there, if they see you as a man or a woman of purpose, they recognize you. That's the honest truth. You've recognized me, haven't you? Because of what I did. So if you do something if you give value to the system will recognize you. Gone are the days where you have to depend so much on money and connection to do things now. You can do things however as you are, if you know what you are doing. That's the honest truth. I was arrested by the Nigerian police some time ago because I know what I was doing. As the time, they want me to, check in and give up. As at the time, I was even offered money to just, no way. You can't buy me out of this. I'm ready to go to that jail and come out and continue what I'm doing. Because my value system, my purpose, my passion for the country is more than whatever money or connection could give. So forget about the money, forget about the connection. It will come. All you need is you. That's the honest truth. So dream big, think big more about yourself. The president we have today was once like you. Some of them, people that you look that have money, they don't really have money like you think. You just worship them. That's why I told you that our problem has been
put aside
the
love of money.
Leave money talk. Money is a thing. Money is just currency. It was printed. You didn't come with it, and you're still going to live without it. So what God gave you is your mind. What God gave you is your value system, is your potentials, the gift, the creativity that you have within you. So that's what you need. You don't need money. Once you develop all that and push it out there, I'll tell you, money will come. And when they come, you wonder where they were before. Because money has always been there. So focus on you.
The Bible says success has many friends. Awesome. Obi Ajulu, I don't know, did you have money, connection, all of those things?
I'm going to speak in a very sharp contrast to what courts have said. So to be in governance, you need to get involved. You need money, whether directly or indirectly. I'll tell you that after running in 2019, I said I was not going to run again. No matter how good my intentions are, no matter how I love my country, I will not run except I have money. Because there are basic things you will need money to do. To go into the villages, to talk to people, to print campaign materials, to be on the radio, no matter how free they make it for you to be in the media, you must even appreciate those who have given you the platform to come talk in the media, because they will go home with transport, you know, there's airtime they are using to run, all of those things. So please, to get into governance, you need money, but it must not be directly, because I didn't have money directly. That is where what he says comes into play now. So when there is purpose and you're focused and you're defining what you are doing, you know what you're doing. I told you I ran in 2019. In 2023, people had money and said, who can use this money and make out something? And it was easy for someone, where they sat in that room, someone said, let's go and call.
So the money found you. And that's what he said.
Okay, yeah.
The money found you.
But thinking, you know, giving them the mindsets of not that there is no, you don't need money to run at all. You know, most times that is what we do. We tell people that they don't need money to run. So people come from a place of, I am a woman, allow me to run, give me nomination free, do this one free for me. The purpose is there, the focus is there, your goal is there. You need to, you know, put all of these things together and then get the sponsorship.
Absolutely.
But money is so much
Important.
involved in politics.
So, I mean, if I could add to that, and so for young people, I've had to run, but not official elections on youth platforms, on a national platform, and it costs me money that we have. So for young people, it will be the same, except you are into fraudulent activities. You probably will not have the network because you are young, and you probably will not have the money. And I think that from what Obi and Uju have said is that you need to gather the knowledge that you need for that particular thing. And a number of times, trying for the first time, you are naive, so you might not. And even if you win and then you are in office, you might what? You might topple. So one thing I advise, for fellow young persons, that you need to plan. You cannot wake up one day and say, you want to run for office. You need to understand politics. And in this sense, what both of them are saying is that you need to know how to mobilize resources.
That's right.
So when you map out
resources
the things
is not
that
only
you need,
financial
do you understand
resources.
me? That you know, right? So for example, you need to talk on TV. People need to know you, right? And if you are in a constituency whereby your predecessor has shake body, do you understand what I'm trying to say? If not anything, you need to spend a lot to reorientate the people that you want to engage with. So it is mostly what would happen. And for me, I'm interested in politics, but then I realized, okay, I need to make some small money so that at least I'll show myself while I'm doing my good work. So just like Scott said, let people know you for certain things, right? What your value system, what you are known for. And then you need to have, those are leadership skills. How do you mobilize resources? Okay, this is the challenge right now. You need to plan, you need to have a team. Those are the things that they don't tell you that you need to know. And these leaders that are influential, you need to be able to establish some form of relationship, not connection. You don't have to have them. If your predecessor, for example, you cannot run for election and you're not part of the party. You're not doing the Ashwebi, you're not going to the party rallies, you're not having such conversation. or your social value in your community or within your party is nothing to what? To write home about.
Yeah.
When you have this with you, just like Scott has said, someone can say, yes, we would provide that support, whether it's development partners, civil society, or even within the party as well, to give to you. But if there's anything that you must take home in terms of running for politics, you cannot wake up one day, you understand me, and say that you want to get all that is attached to it. Then to the second question about how do you have opportunities to collaborate with government. You now have the internet. I was mentioning a platform before. You need to find, our generation we need to teach ourselves, right? Because those informations will not be splashed to your face. It serves the current, system to keep our generation in that, that rage,
In the
uninformed,
dark. Yeah.
constantly angry, kind of hustling or finding the shortcut. So you need to find that opportunities. I need to learn the ways to engage government in civic ways, how to write letters, how to petition, what is the Freedom of Information Bill Act. You need to be resilient.
Know your laws.
Do you understand?
And your policy.
Yes. So somebody, chairman is not around today, no problem. Be ready to come tomorrow. Or the chairman is in a meeting, dust your clothes, bring your water, bring your food, and wait. You must be involved in government processes that call for what? For the public. So public hearing.
Yes.
Right? Town hall meetings. Do you understand me? Budget hearing. When you are in that process, you know how to collaborate. Then when you ask questions of the ministries or the agencies that are responsible for the need that you are looking for, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Then you have that relationship. I have a challenge. If you are someone in the activity space, write a letter to the IG or police command in your community that you just want to pay a courtesy visit and see how that comes out. Yeah.
Fabulous. Deolu,
Please, can I just add something?
I would like to get your final thoughts.
I'd like to add that, and that when coming for those town halls, those engagements, it comes back to what Scott have said. Don't request for money. You call the young people to come for, town halls, public hearings for bills that will affect them, and they are asking you for transport. How much will you give? That's where we need to, put money aside, put the love of, and volunteer to make you what you're good in. Collaborating with those in government, you can give without expecting money. And by the time you give and give, say you're in the media or wherever, you keep giving, you keep coming closer to those people in leadership.
So you're adding value.
And you're adding value, and you're also positioning yourself so that at any
So when they're in that room and they're saying, who can we give this money to?
Can come in.
They will find you. Deolu, I'd love to get your thoughts.
I think
and if you can touch on mentoring and how we can use innovation and energy as well to really
So I really
build the
think that
Nigeria we want.
the first thing is that we need to know who we are. If someone asks you who you are, do you know who you are? How do you answer the question? A lot of the time, the answer we think of is, oh, my name or my profession. And if you don't have a profession, you think you don't have an identity.
Yeah, because many young people don't have jobs as well, right?
And so we have to be able to identify ourselves not by what you do, but recognizing who we are and what we have to offer.
Yes.
Where I align a lot with what has been said about not focusing on money, I think, again, all of these things actually, money is a resource. And so it responds to first your person. And so you must first know who you are and the direction you are walking in. Again, I'll use the example of David. David was anointed king, but he was not given kingship. He first learned the identity of a king before he was made a king. When it was sheep, he was willing to die for them. So that when it was a nation, he was willing to die for the nation. So where are we and who are you? What are you carrying? What are you offering? What are you bringing to the table? When you talk about collaboration, collaboration means I must equally bring in part something that is of value. And one thing that we see, it's very great in Nigeria with, the tech movement and so much. We have so much great wisdom and knowledge. There's intelligence in this country. Amongst the young generation, there's intelligence, there's capacity. And the truth is, if you look at the people that are young, that are doing great things, that are at the table, their gift made a way for them. Now the government are not going to just look at them as a youth because their bank balance that they have built forces them into the conversation.
Yeah. So sit at those tables.
You first have to know who you are and what you're bringing and carry that with audacity. Wherever you are, you might be in a very small room that seems to have very little influence, but that room will attract and change.
Yeah.
When the British decided they wanted to come and take Africa, and they got into a small room with the different countries in Europe, and they divided us amongst themselves.
Was
when
the
they didn't know how they
audacity.
were coming here, but they first sat in the room and said, "This is what we want."
Yeah.
And then they could go out and take it.
Absolutely.
What do we want, and how are we stepping out?
And
to take
who are we? Fabulous.
And to add to it, if you don't mind, sorry to take it out. Most of the youth, they say, they are not getting us involved, they are not getting us involved. Okay, you think they'll come to your house and say, come and get involved. It doesn't work like that. You are the one to get involved. And then they recognize you and give you the opportunity.
Absolutely. Wow. It has been such an insightful conversation on this episode, exploring the role of Nigeria's youth in shaping the nation we all desire. I'd like to thank our guests so much for today's conversation. And of course, to our incredible audience for their energy. And to our viewers for watching, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and share your thoughts on today's episode using the hashtag #TheNigeriaWeWant. I'm your host, Abosede Jojogan, and until the next episode, remember, women's leadership can change everything, everywhere.